Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we talk with women that are making an impact locally, nationally, and globally. These are women with inspiring stories who have carved a path and who are trailblazing through and inspiring others to follow their purpose, to follow their lead, and for Debra to say yes to success. So so happy here. I'm going to read actually your bio because I always like to introduce people that I have had a personal connection with before, but you've got so much. So I'm going to read it word for word because you are a true pioneer. So Debra is a true pioneer in the world of transformation. You are a best-selling author. You are founder of Yes to Success and world-renowned transformational a leader. Now, I have to say, Debra, that if we go back about that word, transformation is really big right now, and I have a feeling it's going to get even bigger because whenever we go through adversity, we go through transformation. But you were one of the pioneers in that whole era of transformation, and I know that we were talking in the green room a little bit about that, Debra. So maybe I'd like to welcome you to start out talking about that start into your period of transformation and your story.
Well, besides talking about my kids, talking about myself is my second favorite thing to do. I think it's everybody's favorite, but thank you for letting me do it. So basically what happened was that for almost a decade, I taught meditation. I was a teacher of transcendental meditation, which I loved doing. But one day I really woke up and I realized that I had to make some money because I didn't have health insurance. I didn't have a car insurance. Actually, I didn't even have a car to insure. So I thought I better make some money. I was actually living in a meditation community at the time in the state of Iowa. And I decided that I was going to move to LA because that's where the money was. And I wanted to make money fast so I could go back to what I loved, which was teaching meditation. But you know the expression, we make plans and God laughs. Well, God had a big laugh over me going to LA to make some money. However, we do things and we think we're doing them for one reason, and it turns out it's a whole other reason that we went in that direction. So I moved to LA. I started selling investments. That's how I thought I would make money. I was a dismal failure. But one night I was invited to a seminar that I thought was going to be on how to be more effective at selling, these investment vehicles that I was supposed to be selling. And it turned out it was the early 80s. It was a seminar on the law of attraction. I mean, this was 25 years before The Secret came out. And this gentleman is saying the way to become wealthy and successful is not necessarily to invest properly or, all of these traditional ways that we think, but the way to become wealthy and successful and enjoy the wealth and feel so overflowing with gratitude about the wealth. The way to do that is to help other people become wealthy and successful. And like you're doing with this podcast, you are giving to other people. So you give, and then it comes back to you. And then he also said, and our minds create our realities. This is the first time I'd ever heard that concept, that if you are always talking about, I'm so poor, I don't know what's going to happen, this is a pandemic, and I was struggling before and it's only going to get worse, you start vibrating with that energy of worse. Now, I know that there are realities, but the truth is that I have seen people who have been in the worst realities imaginable, but they still had a vision of what life was going to be like in the future. So instead of talking about the horribleness of the present or the past, they talked about their vision of the future. And we're like tuning forks. You talk about that, you vibrate with that, like, yeah, maybe I'm struggling now, but what it's going to be like on the other side of this is I'm getting my book written, I'm making some contacts with publishers, I see myself as the #1 best-selling author. You start vibrating with that, like attracts like, just like a tuning fork. Anyway, so I'm at this seminar, this guy's talking about this, every cell of my body is saying yes. And I did what any intelligent person would do. I went the next day and I quit my job. Everyone's, oh, wow, you quit your job, what a hero. hey, I wasn't making any money anyway. I was just, really, it wasn't my thing. And I immersed myself in the study of the great masters of success and prosperity, the classics like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Catherine Ponder. And I just devoured all of that. And within a number of months, I was ready to launch my success seminar company. But I just want to share with your listeners a couple things that really ensured my success, because I did what I taught people to do. And the first thing is to know that when an idea comes to you, it comes to you because you are the one that's supposed to manifest it. Right?
Oh my God.
Right?
Gold.
I didn't have the idea to start Woman of Inspiration podcast. You did. Somebody has an idea to start a flower shop, to start a gluten-free bakery, to start a leadership summit, to start, you know what? The creator cannot come down and open a gluten-free bakery. So what I believe is that there's this in the creator, whatever the God of your understanding is, whatever is, go for it. I believe that the creator whispers in your ear because the creator sees you as a worthy vehicle to manifest that idea. So you get the whisper in your ear and you get first dibs on it. And I know your listeners, I'm going to ask them, how many of you have had an incredible idea? You didn't act on it. And months or years later, somebody else manifested your idea. And you're like, I thought of that. Well, girl, you had first dibs. But guess what? You didn't do it. And the creator needed that idea manifested at the time to move creation ahead. So the creator just had to go to the second stringer. So I had every excuse in the book not to start my Yes to Success seminar. I was a girl in my 20s. The only degree I had was from Maharishi International University in the science of creative intelligence. I drove a beat up Chevy Bel Air that my aunt had left me when she died, and I was broke. And I was going to start a seminar company to teach people to say yes to success. But the idea came to me. So I knew it was mine because that's what I was learning from what I was studying. And the other principles that I live, one is don't wait until you think you're ready. You will never think you're ready. We live in a relative universe. There are always going to be loose ends. If you're waiting for everything to be tied up in a neat little package, ain't gonna happen. So loose ends and all, you gotta take your idea and start taking steps in that direction. You can't, and you might have to course correct, but you can't steer a parked car. You gotta get it out of the driveway, and then you might have to course correct. And the other thing is, don't go around telling everybody what your idea is, because what's gonna happen is one of two things. One is you are going to bump up against the discouragement committee, who is going to tell you all of the reasons why your idea is not going to work, and it's going to crush that seed before you get a chance to before it becomes a sprout, before it becomes a strong tree. So don't go telling people if you're going to bump up against the discouragement committee, and the discouragement committee is everywhere. And the other thing is, if you tell people, they might say to you, oh my God, I had the same idea. I was going to do that. And then you feel like you can't do it because they're doing it. And would it be wrong to take their idea? And it gets all convoluted. And there's actually one other reason. And that is, people might say to you, what a brilliant idea. And it's like, yeah, that is a brilliant idea. And you already got the accolades. So there's less of an impetus to do it because you already got told how brilliant it is. So all those reasons, your sacred and secret comes from the same root. Your ideas, they are sacred. They should be kept secret between you and the creator. I mean, if you have to maybe get a loan or whatever, there are a few people you might have to share it with, but really be careful. So back to my story. Used all my principles, and then I took a step from which there was no turning back, because that's another principle that I teach. And back in the 1980s, it was putting up a poster. I rented a room at the Santa Monica Public Library, put up a poster, Debra Poneman, to show you how to say yes to success. And you know what, Monica? As soon as the posters went up, the discouragement committee showed up. But, who's going to come to a seminar on your thoughts create your reality and law of attraction. It wasn't called that then, but I'd already put up the poster. I had already taken a step from which there was no turning back. So even though the discouragement committee told me nobody would believe a crazy idea like that, I went to the Santa Monica Public Library. There was standing room only. And within a few short years, my seminars were being taught in 7 countries on 4 continents, decades before the internet made international communication instantaneous. This was snail mail and phones with curly cords, attached to the wall, and it's still spread to 7 countries on 4 continents. In every major city I had reps teaching, and the rest was history.
Amazing. Like, I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps from my toes all the way up to like the top of my hair follicles. Like, that's crazy. I love your energy. And you've had that since the beginning, like from the very beginning. You haven't lost that passion and that power through anything, Debra. And it's like contagious.
Well, thank you. And I actually feel that what I teach in Yes to Success is even more relevant now, in this time where people are doubting and people are filled with anxiety and they don't know if their dreams are ever going to come true. Let me tell you, they are, because there are people out there who are waiting to hear your message. And they have to just take a little break and wait a little bit longer. But I believe that there are people who were born for you to be their teacher, for you to be the person, they sign up for your massage therapy school, or they come on that is their contract in this lifetime. There are people, and a lot of people say, but I want to teach happiness, and there's so many people teaching happiness. Yeah, but they're not you. And there are people who are waiting for you.
Absolutely. Now, Debra, there was a time where Yes to Success, you achieved all the success. And I think we need to tell our listeners, the people that you coached ended up being not only best-selling authors, but New York Times best-selling authors, millionaires, billionaires. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's kind of, step into that spotlight.
Well, it was interesting because, again, it was the 1980s, and the only people who were teaching the types of knowledge that I was teaching at the time were like Science of Mind and Church of Religious Science, and people like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles, but it certainly wasn't mainstream. And my desire was to take those kind of esoteric, kind of metaphysical principles and make them acceptable to the mainstream. It's become a little bit more mainstream now, but not entirely still. But so some of the people who came to my seminars, and they took the principles that I taught them, and they did go on and become, well, we talked about the wonderful Marci Shimoff, who is actually the #1 best-selling nonfiction woman author of all times. And because she wrote Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul, and the Mother Soul, and the Couple Soul, and the Single Soul, and all the souls. And she also wrote Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason. And she came to my seminar in the early 1980s and came up to me afterwards and said, I want to work for you. What you're doing is so incredible. And what's so great about that is one of the principles that I teach is never judge anybody by the way they look, by if they're old or young or black or white, whatever. And Marci was this bouncy little college student, and she's like, practically jumping up and down. But I always teach, the person in front of you is the most important person in the world at any given moment. And they deserve to be treated that way. And you give them your full attention, and you don't look around the room to see if there's somebody more important. To put it in a little bit of a more esoteric way, I believe that we all do God's work on earth. And again, that's a God of your understanding. And I believe that if you do God's work, which is loving every child of her creation, then the Creator says, look at Debra. She's loving that person, even though their glasses are lopsided, or their hair is funny, or, their clothes aren't the latest. She's doing my work on earth. I will make sure that her work is taken care of, and I will help her to become successful. I will help her to fulfill her desires. So back to Marci, I heard her out, and she was in graduate school at the time, and she said, I want to quit. And I said, what would your parents say about that? She said, they will hate it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And she became my personal assistant. And the thing is, you never know. You never know. Did I think, oh, I'm going to give Marci my full attention because one day she's going to be the #1 best-selling woman author of all times and sell 16 million chicken soup books. And her books are on the New York Times bestseller list for 122 weeks. No, I gave her my full attention because she's a human being, and that's what she deserves. And later on, another cool part of the story, because there was also Janet Atwood, who is also the New York Times bestselling author of The Passion Test, and there is Phil Town, who is also the New York Times bestselling author of Rule Number 1, and even Deepak Chopra took my seminar multiple times. But back to Marci, years later, and she was asked to write chicken soup for the American Idol Soul. And she was under contract for Happy for No Reason, but they said to her, do you know anybody who's a great writer and knows American Idol backwards and forwards? And of course I had tweens at the time. So what did I do? Watch American Idol. She said, yes, I have the perfect person. And I was handed a best-selling book to write. I mean, it was the #1 book series of all times, which is Chicken Soup for the Soul, and the #1 TV series of all times, or TV show, which was American Idol. And my book married the two. And I was just handed that because decades before, I treated somebody as the most important person in the world.
Amazing. And I just have to say props to that, because I think we need to hear about that right now. We need to hear about how we can help and serve others, and that just go at it with your full heart and your full intention, because it's the right thing to do. And don't worry about where it's going to come back. It will always come back to you. Just put it out there and let it go and do its work.
Can I tell one more story about that?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've heard this before, but it's my favorite story. And that is, it's about my son. Remember this story?
Amazing story.
Amazing story. So my son loved basketball. He loved basketball. I mean, he was shooting baskets while he was still holding on. He couldn't even walk yet, and he's shooting baskets. And his entire childhood was on the basketball court, and he made the A team when he was in high school. The only problem was he was the only white kid on the team, and white boys decidedly cannot jump. So he sat on the bench the whole season, but he noticed that he had an eye for talent. And what he did is he started making films, because he would go to all of the games, JV, varsity, freshman games, on the bus, and sat on the bench, but he started making films of these high school players. And what he did is he started a scouting service for college coaches to give them the scoop on high school basketball players in the Chicago area. And then one day he realized that he was making films of the best players, but the best players, like the Derrick Roses of the world, were going to get recruited by the best colleges anyway. So he decided that what he wanted to do was he wanted to help the Division II kids, the kids that would be lost under the radar unless somebody championed their cause. And he also decided that just making films of one kid was too slow. So at the age of 16, he started a nonprofit where he put on basketball showcases for kids in the inner city of Chicago. And the reason I tell the story is that it became so big. It started out with 10 coaches and 30 players, and then it was 40 coaches and 100 players. And his last one this year, unfortunately, it got canceled, but last year it was 140 coaches and 350 players, and he's generated over $40 million in scholarship money for kids in the inner city of Chicago. But the reason why I share this with you is because he's generating millions of dollars of scholarship money for these kids, and he will not take a penny. And I'd say, Daniel, isn't there some way that you can also make some money? And he said to me, Mom, this is when he was 16 or 17, he says, Mom, I'm building relationship capital. You just have to be patient. And I said, okay, I get it. And then as the years went on and he starts getting consulting positions and then he decides to make a movie on basketball in Chicago. And one of the people who he had built relationship capital with gave him almost $500,000 to make his movie, which by the way was nominated for an Emmy. It was called A Shot in the Dark, or Shot in the Dark, not just Shot in the Dark. And it's funny, my friends would say, why are you letting him sleep on your couch? And I'd say, you know what? Just chill. He's building relationship capital. And then when he decided that he also wanted to become a sports agent, he has a big agency now, it's called Beyond Athlete Management. One of the wealthiest families and most renowned families in the States, the family, they're the biggest donors to the Democratic Party. He's in business with them now because
amazing.
That's who he built relationship capital with. So relationship capital, it's the same thing. It's like, don't worry. I mean, he didn't get these kids scholarships because he thought, well, one day they'll be in the NBA and they'll help me out. He did it because he really cared about the kids, but he also knew that he was building relationship capital.
I love that story, and I love it every time you share it. And I actually would love to have your son, just saying, come and join us for the Success Summit, because I think that's an incredible story that we can learn a lot from. And I'd love to just give him a hug when we can actually hug people, because oh my God, what an extraordinary story.
I just saw him last night. He's only 28, and he was just chosen for some film that they picked just one person who's a
change maker.
What do you call it? What do you call it when you have a management firm like he does? It's not a scout, whatever he is. They just picked one, and they could have gone to any of the biggest agencies, but they chose Daniel. So he's really inspiring and hysterically funny. So if you ever want a great speaker with a great story, give him a call. You know how I've launched the Support Her, which is for the men that are champions for women.
I think that you raised a Support Her. What a great role model. I think that we need more positive male role models that champion for women that are doing remarkable things to inspire young boys. We have lots of great leaders as women. My job is to really, so I'd love to talk to you about having him as a Support Her ambassador. He'd be an amazing one.
Totally. And by the way, all the years that he had these showcases, it was just showcasing guys. And then he invited Jewel Lloyd, who's one of the stars of the WNBA, to start a women's division of his showcase. So again, it didn't happen this year because the whole basketball season got shut down. The reason why I get choked up about it is because so many of these kids, Daniel's showcase is the only way they get seen, because the recruiters, they come and they look for the best. And if you want to be in a showcase, it usually costs like $200, $300 to be in a showcase, but Daniel's is free. It's a nonprofit, and he structured it that way. So that everybody can get in front of the college coaches, but it's the only way. And it got canceled this year, so it's kind of heartbreaking.
I know that this is a door closed for a bigger door open. I'm a firm believer.
As my mother would say, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer, Debra. So, you have so many stories. I'm getting frosty-eyed here. For those that are watching, they could see it, but those that are listening later, we've talking about deep and meaningful, purposeful things here that are making an impact in the world. Now, you had some shifts along the way. So it wasn't all smooth sailing. You had all these opportunities come to you, landed in your lap. But I believe that was because of the human capital that you paved, obviously. But you did a pivot. That was a really big pivot in your life. You chose to stay home with your kids at the height of your career. So let's talk about that.
Well, that's another thing when people say, oh my goodness, you gave it all up. I gave up nothing. I was so blessed to be in a position that when my children were born, that I had a husband who was very, very successful, that I was in a position to stay home and be a full-time mom at home. So I'm grateful for that at every moment. There are three things that I want to say. One is I will be forever grateful to Fred Poneman. We're not married anymore, but I love him with all my heart. We're still like BFFs forever, and he's a fabulous father. So that's one thing. The other thing is, again, each of us was put on earth for a purpose. And if you take a year out to work on a political campaign, or 2 years out to go do relief work in Africa, or a year out to be with your mother while she's making her transition and just be there to stroke her hair and hold her hand, or 21 years out to be a mom at home, what you were put on earth to do is not going to go away. As a matter of fact, it's only going to become stronger if you follow your heart. Mm-hmm. And when I left the world of speaking and transformation, and people say, oh, have you gone out of your mind? I'm like, yeah, out of my mind, right into my heart. Because when my daughter was born, and I'm going around teaching people to follow your heart, that it is the only true path to your success, and my heart is in her little crib, I believe people have authenticity meters. We could smell inauthenticity a mile away, right, girl? I mean, we can. And if I was going around teaching to follow your heart, and all I wanted to do was be with my baby. I mean, I didn't want to leave her to go to the bathroom, let alone to go. I remember I was supposed to do a set of lectures in Singapore and workshops in Singapore. And when the baby was born, my friend Chiang called me and said, oh, heard your baby was born. Come on, let's get this on the books. And I said, Chiang, you're going to have to call me back in 18 years. Which he still remembers that, but it turned into 21 years. But 21 years later, what I was put on earth to do was still waiting for me, and I'm doing it now. And again, all of those people who I had built relationship capital with way back before I took my 21 years away, they were there now, New York Times bestselling authors and millionaires and billionaires. Who did they want to help revitalize my career and come back and get me speaking engagements? Those people, because I had built relationship capital with them. So again, there's a word in Sanskrit, dharma. Dharma is the way, your way, what you were put on earth to do. It's not going to go away if you take a year off, or 2 years, or 21 years.
Amazing. And I think that's so important for us to think about right now. And I had prepared some questions. I want on the record, because this is live right now. What we're doing is recording, but it's like a time capsule. Today is April the 11th, 2020. March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared it a global pandemic. And everything in our lives, and it touches every single person around the world. It also unifies every single person around the world, because we are not going through this crisis together, separately. We're going through it together. So Debra, how has your journey prepared you for dealing with what we're dealing with right now with the pandemic?
Well, first of all, I want to say, like you just said, we are all in this boat together, but I do not believe that it is the Titanic. I believe that we are going to make it to the other shore. There are some winds and waves and icebergs, but we're going to go around them. But here's the thing. I want to say that for the last few weeks, our in-trays and the airwaves have been overflowing with advice from experts sharing their best thinking of how to deal with this very unique situation, how to manage our time, our finances, our lost revenues, our payrolls, our kids at home. And there are very many profound and helpful ideas. But the truth is, nobody really is an expert on how to thrive during a pandemic. No one, because none of us has ever done this before. This is uncharted territory, unless we were alive during the Black Plague, but I don't think any of your listeners were alive in 1347. So
No.
right? You look gorgeous, you have the secret to youth, but 1347, I don't think so. But anyway, so we're all offering our best thoughts, but nobody has all the answers. I mean, during the Black Plague, nobody said to you, well, just do your business online. No. So, but what has been around for a millennium are ways to find strength when you think you have none, and ways to find hope when things look bleak, right? And ways to strengthen your physical and your emotional immunity. So I guess what I could offer are a couple tools that I've used to strengthen my physical and emotional well-being and my immunity to get through these times. And this is, you might think this is way out in left field, but I'll tell you one thing everyone needs to do, and that is breathe. You know what helps me? Deep breathing. Because sometimes when I'm listening to people and there's a lot of anxiety, what I tell people, what I do myself is, when you do deep breathing, it not only strengthens your lungs, which we know that the virus attacks our lungs, but it also centers you and it calms you and it reduces your anxiety. So what I tell people to do, and your listeners can do it right now, everybody, just breathe. Here, let's do it. Just breathe. Let's do it. So we breathe in through our nose, and it's all in and out through your nose. And it's slow, okay? And it's from the belly. So here's what we do. We breathe in through our nose, very slowly, 2, 3, 4, then hold, 2, 3, 4, then out through your nose very slowly. Let it out slowly, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then hold, 2, and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold, 2, one more time, breathe in and all the way, bring the breath up from the belly, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, into the belly, 2, 3, expand the belly, 4, 5, 6, hold, 2. So
that was hard. That was super hard. Like I can't hold my breath anymore. Like, it takes practice to breathe. I don't know how silly that sounds, but it really takes practice. So like, honestly, you have to just really be thoughtful. Like, how do you, like, you go slow for 6 seconds and then out for 6 seconds. Is that it?
Yeah. And the thing is, in for 4, hold for 4, and out for 6. But I'll tell you something. If you can only do in for 3 and hold for 3 and out for 5, it doesn't really matter. But let me ask you this, okay? Did you feel your lungs expanding when you did that?
I don't know. I was judging myself for doing it
Yes.
properly. To be honest with you, I was like, I've never this is allergy season for me. So most of the time I can't even breathe through my nose with clarity. I've started using the neti pod. So that has helped me immensely over the past couple days. But I was like, I'm like a 3. I'm a fast everything. So I'm like, I breathe fast.
And that's exactly the point. Slow, 2, 3, like you almost have to hold the breath back. So you breathe in really slowly, 2, 3, 4, from the belly. And usually what happens is that not only do you feel because we have to exercise our lungs, we have to strengthen our lungs, because that's where the virus attacks. It attacks the lungs. So you want to do things to strengthen your lungs. And not only what people usually find is that if they do that, they feel more centered and they feel more calm. So I invite you to try it. Do it more slowly and do it a couple times a day. And if you're feeling anxiety, like, or you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, oh, so many things to do, and just stop, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, or breathe in 3, hold 3, whatever is comfortable for you. And you will immediately feel more centered. You will immediately, and it also cleans out the brain. But here's another one for you. If
Okay,
you
first is breathing for those that just joined. Breathing is
First
one.
is breathing. And the second, if you're feeling depressed, do what doctors and psychologists and metaphysicians since antiquity have said to do. And that is wake up in the morning and think, how can I give? How can I serve? How can I uplift someone else today? Because Monica, it's actually been scientifically documented that when people perform acts of kindness, if they do volunteer work, or if they do charitable acts, if they write a check to support an organization, and I know you're so philanthropic, or you just do, like I say, a random act of kindness, call a friend who you haven't talked to in years. You know what I did last week? I sent a whole bunch of my friends these beautiful candles with words on them, like hope and love and strength, with notes. It just said, I'm thinking of you and I love you. And when you do a random act of kindness, it triggers the release of oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone. And when I was ordering all of those candles for my friends, I was so happy. Actually, there was a study done at Harvard that they asked the study participants, would you feel happier if somebody gave you a bunch of money or you gave someone else a bunch of money? And they all said, I'd be happier if somebody gave me a bunch of money. And then when they actually did it, they found that would actually increase the oxytocin, the happiness hormone, it was when they were giving. And there's been scientific research that says giving decreases your anxiety levels, your cortisol levels go down, which of course is the stress hormone. Giving has been scientifically proven to reduce heart disease, pain, depression. Givers sleep better. And here's the best news. There was a study done in, I think it was like 2006 at the National Institutes of Health. The study was done by a guy, Jorge Moll, M-O-L-L. And what they found is that when people gave to charities, it actually activated regions of the brain associated with pleasure and trust, and created a warm glow that they called the giver's high. But they also found that just thinking about doing a random act of kindness created the giver's high. It released endorphins in the brain and gave that positive feeling. So I would just say, another thing to do to feel good at this time is get up and think, okay, how can I serve? How can I give? How can I do a random act of kindness? Who can I uplift today? Because that's the antidote. That's what will release that feel-good hormone. And what else do I do? I'll tell you what else I do. I'm really vigilant about my meditation program. I don't skip anymore. Okay. Even tomorrow is Easter. So what does it say in the Bible? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within, and all else will be added unto you. It doesn't say seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within, and all else will be added unto you, except during a pandemic. No, always seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within. So I do that in two ways. I'm giving you so many things now. I'll give you one more. One is that I'm very vigilant about my meditation, but the other thing is that Napoleon Hill, in his book, Think and Grow Rich, he says, or maybe it's Grow Rich with Peace of Mind, he says that the way how he seeks the kingdom of heaven within is that before he begins every day, he sits down, he takes out a piece of paper, and he writes down, God, what are you and I going to create today? And then he just does this spontaneous writing. This isn't a thinking exercise. It's you just let that pen slide across the paper, Okay, just write, whatever flows out. It's like from your higher self or God or spirit or whatever you want to name that energy. It comes in, it goes through your heart, out your arm, onto the paper. And Napoleon Hill says his best ideas always came when he was he called it sitting for ideas. I call it sitting for guidance. So that's another thing that you can do if you're at a loss. What am I going to do? I'm on furlough. I don't have any way to make money. Well, what we tend to do, and that doesn't mean we don't seek, in the US, there are a lot of loans available for small businesses. We seek those, but what we tend to do is we ask everybody else what we should do. And I always think it's so funny when people say, oh, Neil Donald Walsh got messages from God. All of his books, what is it, Communications from God, whatever his books are called. We all get messages from God. What, do you think God only talks to Neil Donald Walsh? It's like we get messages from God every minute of every day. So if you want an answer of what to do during this time, sit down and just ask the creator or ask your higher self, whatever you want to call that energy, and just write. And when you're done writing, you take a look, don't stop, just write. And you'll read it and you'll be like, darn, I'm smart, because the answers that will come out will blow your mind.
And you and I are so connected on so many levels, Debra, because, the breathing, I'm working, the meditation, I've started actually to share the practice in our private group. And now I'm going to reach out and I'm going to share it on this platform as well. So, and then we have Mondays that are open for meditation at 7 a.m. So meditation, so important. Love I find everybody receives something in a different way. Like I remember talking about downloads, right? We talked about downloads, and I'm like, the only people that would, understand what a download is, it's a message. It's a message that is being sent to you that you have, that's only your message. And so I used to not sleep. Like I went through a long period where I wasn't sleeping because my messages were coming all the time and it was keeping me up. And I'm like, God, I'm exhausted waking up, right? Like I have all these things to do and I'm excited about it, but too many messages. So I do it at night when I go to bed. I'm like, okay, I ask a question and then I say, I need my rest. Please give me my answer when I wake in the morning. And then I know, and I put all my trust into that so that when I wake up, it's poof, it's there. And I can't tell you how many times I've woken up and it's like crystal clear. And I just go. I don't even question it. I just go. And there's been the occasion the whisper has woken me at 2 a.m. and said, do this, and I do it. And honestly, like that's how I registered Woman of Inspiration trademark. It said, check your trademarks, Monica, check your trademarks. And I'm like, okay, 2 a.m, I check my trademarks. And that's a whole other story, right? And I acted. I never, ever miss not acting. And I think that's so important. So I love the reinforcement. It's such good information for people to hear it and know that it works, right? So, and
what you said was so brilliant, because the one thing that I didn't say is that after you read what you wrote, then you have to act on it. That's the part that sometimes people fall down on. They're like, damn, I'm brilliant, but then they don't act on it. So you have to trust that the source of that inspiration knows what she is talking about, and just trust and act on it.
Amazing. I hope that, I'm lit up right now. Like I've got these, let's go back here. Let's talk about where we are right now, Debra, because you're incredibly positive. You've given us some really great tips of breathing, of meditation, of channeling and asking and just ways of kind of being aware of the messages, right? But how do you think that your leadership and all your experience has set you up has it changed the way you lead during the pandemic, because of the pandemic? Like, I'm curious, you're a great leader, but has the pandemic changed the way you lead right now?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's changed with the way I interact with my team So what we like to do when we have our team meetings is that we have a culture of sharing. We get together, and it's always Zoom because I have people all over the country and Canada. We have people who live in Canada on our team, and we would share at the beginning of our meetings, like, what's up with me? And we kind of slacked on that a little bit. And now we are really committed to giving each person time to, this is how we do it, just so that you know. We share what's up with me and what's good with me. And so what we do is we go around and each person says, what's up with me? And it could be negative, positive, doesn't matter. It's just they each get a turn. Like, I'm worried about my mom, or it's so hard for me to do this while I'm homeschooling my kids, or I'm sad that I can't go to church on Easter. It's my favorite service of the year. Whatever is up with them, they just get to express it. And sometimes there's tears, okay? And then the next thing everybody does, we go around in our little Hollywood squares and they say, what's good with me? I'm healthy. No one I know has, contracted the virus. I have a roof over my head and food on the table, or whatever it is, whatever. And a lot of people, they have something really good that happened. My daughter just got engaged. Whatever it is, we get to share what's good with me. And a lot of times people don't have anybody that they can share what's bothering them and what's exciting. So we have not, in the last few weeks, we do not miss what's up with me and what's good with me. And then we added something recently, and we all have to say something we did to uplift someone else today. Like, one woman, her neighbor's child had their birthday, so she made the cake and handed it over the fence to them. Okay, so everybody gets to, or like I said, I sent a candle to my friends, and somebody else called their aunt who was in a nursing home, who, it was it didn't even matter that she was incoherent because she just poured out her love and said how much she loved her. So we each share something we did for somebody else. Well, it doesn't have to be that day, but since we had our last team meeting. So we're really not just all about business at this time. More people are feeling very vulnerable, and some people have some fear and some whatever they're going through, contraction. So what we do now is we create a safe space for for people to feel how much we care and how much we love them.
Amazing. I think that there's so many great lessons right now for us to lead with and to take out of what we're doing and just run with it, experiment, roll with it. I just, as much, like, my heart goes out to all of those families that have lost loved ones, that have sick loved ones, that, like, even my mom, she's like, really nervous. Like, I haven't hugged her in weeks, right? And also those people that are so scared, and they're not even sick, they're just really scared about the uncertainty. There's that real fear and panic out there, and I really want to hold a space for that. And but I also want people to look above the beauty of it, right? About what we're talking about, of all the gifts that are coming out of it, that we change, we embrace. We're being so much more, everybody's being kind right now. I haven't seen the trolls out on social media. I have not. And maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but I haven't seen the trolls. I haven't seen the judgment. It's about caring. It's about kindness, about lifting each other up. And you talked about doing something good for each other. And I thought, we still have Woman of Inspiration opened. And I'm like going, I'm going to challenge everybody to nominate one woman, one healthcare worker, one frontline person, one volunteer that is going above and beyond. Because you know what? You do that to someone, it makes them feel so good and valued. And I think the word valued for me is going to be a word that I'm going to start talking about, because we have to value ourselves and value others. Yes. And really put that top of mind and care about people. It's about people right now. It's not about, yes, business, but it's about that human capital. It's about the business. It's the business of people.
Absolutely. And I love that idea with your network. It's just the perfect network to have people nominate somebody like a healthcare worker or a first responder or somebody who's going above and beyond. I look at those healthcare workers, I just marvel at what they do. It's just, these long shifts right in the center of the war zone. And wow, if we could just wait. And I love how, like in New York at 7:00, everybody goes out on their balconies or opens their windows and claps and cheers for the first responders and the healthcare workers. It's such a beautiful thing. And like you say, so many beautiful things are, that the NBA players who got together and raised millions of dollars to give money to the hourly workers at the stadium who don't have any income now. And there's another football player, I believe in New Orleans, who just gave millions of dollars to food bank, but it was to give money to like the waiters and the the servers and the cooks in his area that have no income now. And it's so many people are doing such beautiful things. It's just, this world is it's become a scary place on one side and a beautiful place on the other. And actually, do we have time for me to say one more thing?
Yes.
And I think that what we're getting to right now is that if we really want to do what's best for ourselves and what's best vibrationally for the world, because I really feel that the vibration of the world is up leveling now with all of the meditation groups and all of the random acts of kindness, and what we need to do is focus on the good. There's that parable about the Cherokee grandfather who said to his grandson that he has a fight going on inside of him, and that there were two wolves inside of him. And the one wolf was filled with hate and greed and jealousy and self-pity and arrogance and regret. And the other wolf was filled with faith and kindness and humility and empathy and generosity. And he said to his grandson, really, that everyone has the same fight going on between two wolves inside of themselves. And the grandson asked the grandfather, which wolf will win? And the grandfather said, the one you feed. So I think that what I would recommend at this time is that you feed your mind with what's good and take what I call appreciation breaks, like stop. And yes, there are real problems, but stop and think. You have a roof over your head. You're watching this on a computer, right? Or a phone. That puts you like in the upper, like 10% of people on this planet. You have food on your table, in your refrigerator. Maybe you're going to it too much these days. And the thing is that, and another thing we could do before we go to bed at night, make a list of what you're grateful for before you go to sleep. And what will happen is that the more you keep your vibration high by doing these kinds of things, by feeding that wolf, feed the wolf of love, of humility, of kindness, and not the wolf of arrogance and fear and worry and doubt. And then what's going to happen is that's the wolf that's going to thrive. And another thing I do, which is really fun, I don't watch the news, because the more I watched the news, especially down here in the States, I just was feeling more and more contracted and shrinking and feeling more and more hopeless. And I thought, that's it. If anything happens that I really need to know about, I will hear about it. So now what I do is I subscribe to things like the Optimist Daily. I read this thing yesterday that the people in India and the Punjab area, for the first time in 30 years from Punjab, they could see the top of the Himalayas. Amazing. Because the pollution has been so reduced, they can see the Himalayas. And I also subscribe to the Optimist Daily, and I subscribe to CNN, the good stuff. And same thing today, it comes out on Saturday. And oh my goodness, I was just feeling so excited when I was reading all of the great stuff that's going on in the world. I mean, you cry because they show these people doing these acts of kindness. So that's what we want to do. I mean, the news sensationalizes everything, and think about how it makes you feel. So what you want to do is you want to do those things and read those things that make you feel expanded and vibrate on a high level, because the more people who vibrate on that high level, it is going to change the world.
And that, my friend, is exactly why we're having the Woman of Inspiration podcast with extraordinary women with extraordinary mindsets that have overcome challenges, that take no prisoners. They're like, I'm going up. There's no looking back. There's going forward. There's no looking back. Do you know what I mean? It's just real, authentic, positive, caring, and kind. That's what the Universal Women's Network is all about. And that's what the Woman of Inspiration podcast is. And I'm so grateful that you and I are connecting right now on this space right now and able to share this wisdom with anybody that's watching. And then, of course, when we send this out onto the podcast, and it's going to continue to carry through many, many, many years. So thank you, Debra, so much for your wisdom, your kindness, your generosity, your enthusiasm that is like leaping off. Like, honestly, when you and I actually get together in person, there's smoke.
I know.
There's smoke. It's just like, wow,
And Monica, I don't know if people thank you enough. You are such a visionary on this planet. Everything when you tell me your ideas, when you told me that you were starting something new in the Universal Women, I'm like, that would be Monica, always starting something new. And you do it. You don't just talk a good game, you do it, and you change lives, and you have these events that uplift women in Canada and all around the world. And you are such a role model for women today. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for being you and for being a true woman of inspiration.
You're going to make me weepy and cryy. And I'm like, thank you. It's really meaningful. I really appreciate that. And I thank you, because I work really hard. And I don't believe that it ever comes easy. And some days you don't know what you don't know, but honestly, I get my messages and I just act. I'm just carrying out my path.
And I want to say it for your listeners who don't know it, while at the same time you're raising a phenomenal son who's now a teenager. And what you tell me about him, how you're raising such a good, loving, kind, caring human being with all that you're doing. And you know what? Our kids, that expression, your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. It's like you could tell your kids what to do, and now they watch who you are. And I'm sure that your son is watching who you are, and that's why he is so loving and why he loves you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I know that, our kids surprise us in the most amazing ways, and they surprise us and you're like, oh, I guess you are paying attention. There's little things that happen. You're like, oh, I guess you do watch what I do, or I guess you do love me as much as I love you and more. So thank you so much for all of that. I've just been, you're making my heart sing right now. I just can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to having you come and join us for our Woman of Inspiration Gala, which we are going forward with it. I'm planning 7 months out. I am pushing forward. We've got our dates for Calgary. We've got our dates for Toronto and at the convention centers in Calgary and in Toronto. And we're booking a 2-day. Now, you're going to love this part, right? Is the first day is a Success Summit. How awesome. So last year when you spoke at Lead with Purpose, we're going to do another full day conference, Success Summit. And then the next day is going to be focused on health and wellness. health, beauty, and wellness for half a day with an expo. And then it's like everybody just goes and gets ready for the gala awards that evening. And I have to say it's a historical event, because the way that I'm visualizing it is we are going to be honoring our unsung heroes, our frontliners, our healthcare workers across Canada. So I'm super excited to have you involved in that as well, Debra. So we have lots of work to do over the next couple of months, and I'm super excited that people will have the opportunity to meet you in person.
Yes, and I'll tell you something, everything you just described, you know, some people say they're going to do stuff, but anything comes out of your mouth, I know it's happening because you are the most amazing creator and your events are awesome. So it's always an honor to be a part of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Debra, so much. I had like a couple other questions. Do you have one more? I just want to touch on this because we talk about our boys, right, as being really interesting. This is the last one, about the men being involved, because, you know, we're a women's organization. We advocate for women, we support women, but there are support hers in our world that champion for women. So let's not forget about them. So how important is it to embrace the support hers and to elevate them?
The supporters. Well, so, well, I'm going to brace myself for being blasted for saying something that's sexist. But, you know, Eleanor Roosevelt said, a woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she gets in hot water. And what's amazing to me is how women really do rise to the occasion. And usually we think of men, the ones who go out and they're the warriors. But I think that what's happened is that our cultural conditioning that women have honed over millennium, which is to be leaders because they're leaders in their families, but also we're not criticized for being empathetic. We're not criticized for being, you know, loving and kind and gentle. And men have a very hard time because the cultural conditioning is that it's almost like a muscle that hasn't been working for men because they're shot down when they're kind and they're loving and they lead from the heart. Okay. So I think that what you're doing with Support Her is that you are giving men a place that you're saying it's okay to be loving and supportive and kind and caring. Men want to be that way. But again, our society has pushed that down in men and they're almost afraid to express it. And and our sons are very similar. I mean, my son is very kind and he's very caring and he's very loving. But I see, you know, that I also have my foster sons, the boys who have come to live with me over the years. Now they're men and they have their own kids and all of that, but a lot from the African American community. And it would break my heart because they could only be, it was a cultural thing, you know, kind and loving and caring and gentle when no one was looking. But I saw it there. I saw they had the sweetest, most precious hearts. And again, what we have to do is we have to allow our men to know that it's not a weakness to be loving, to be gentle, to be kind, to be nurturing, but it shows that you have strength because you're saying, damn the torpedoes, whatever anybody, they can think what they want to think. I'm going to be this way. And you're actually providing a platform for men to be able to do that. So again, I thank you.
Oh, you know what? I feel that this is the right time. This is the right time beyond all us when we're fighting for, and I hate to use the words fighting, but when women are advocating for each other, we don't do it alone. And the men are like, but what about us? You know, we want to help. How can we help? And so now we can't move the needle without togetherness, men and women doing it together. So I think that this part is going to be, I haven't heard over the last 4 weeks a lot of conversations about the us versus them game, right? I've heard a lot more of the we and together and allies, and like everybody's just, let's see what we can do to work together. And I think that that is something really positive that's going to come out of this as well. So men and women working together. And I love, love, love how you've articulated it, because that was beautiful. I love the analogy about, Eleanor Roosevelt, and, because we are strong, and men have, it's harder for them to be empathetic and to show that kindness, right? So now I think this opportunity that we have with the pandemic provides that opportunity for them to shine. So I'm so grateful for that.
And for us to be warrior women, and to show how strong we are, like that tea bag, and for men to be allowed to, I saw a doctor talking on the news, and he had a tear rolling down his face when he was talking about what it was like working in the hospital with all of the people dying. And this pandemic is such a blessing in so many ways. And one is that it is becoming the great equalizer. And the virus itself doesn't discriminate, black, white, old, young, rich, poor. It's quite a phenomenon.
Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you very soon. And this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast. Debra Poneman is the founder of Yes to Success. She is a best-selling author. She is one of the world's first transformational coaches. And you've had the opportunity to hear her up close and personal, and look forward to seeing you in our events soon. Debra, please take care, be safe, and keep inspiring those around you. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.